Hello everybody, this is Tip-Top MTG here today with another custom Magic the Gathering video. In today's video, I'm going to be looking at a bunch of custom Magic the Gathering cards, telling you why the mechanic is cool, or what the card's trying to do is cool, why they work, how it works, balancing issues. Basically, I went to Reddit, and I went to the r/custom magic subreddit, and took the top 10 serious custom Magic card designs, because there are some that are meant to be jokes, and these ones are mostly serious designs, so I can critique them, you know, talk about balance, talk about power, talk about creativity, talk about if this is just a worse version of another card, you know, stuff like that. Now, I am not perfect, obviously, and so if I miss something, if I miss like an interaction, or if I miss a card that like, oh, this is very similar to this other card, and this one is just a strictly worse version, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of these cards as well. So, why don't we jump right into this? So starting off, we have Paranoid Forester. This is by user... you'll be able to see the user in the upper left of their Reddit username. And then, so this is Paranoid Forester. It's a 1-cost creature orc 1/1, and whenever land enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to it. So basically what this is going to do is it's going to say, hey, land enters the battlefield, deal a damage to it, and this really only applies to Arbor Elf, which is a 1/1 creature land that, you know, it is used, and it does have some interesting little interactions there, and this thing will basically just kill that when it enters the battlefield, and that's about it, because not many other lands enter the battlefield as creatures. Sometimes lands get turned into creatures, but this would not trigger during those instances, so it's a very, very minuscule like effect that really doesn't have a big effect. The only thing is, I guess, if you gave it Death Touch and could somehow turn all lands into creatures, this might be some interesting, oh, you play a land, kill it. So that is definitely an interesting idea, but it just seemed a little narrow. But I do enjoy the, like, oh, usually they're inanimate, never hurts to check though. I just really like the flavor. It's very fun. Next, we have the Bloodstone. It costs 1 black Phyrexian for a legendary artifact, and it says when it enters the battlefield, you lose life equal to 10 minus the number of lands you control. So if you play this turn 1, you have 1 land, you're going to lose 9 life. If you play this turn 10, when you have 10 lands, you're not going to lose any life. So it's very interesting, and then it just ramps you. Now, of course, you don't actually have to have any lands. You could just play this for 2 life, basically, although if you don't have any lands, again, this will be 12 life for just 1 ramp spell, but in a deck that's trying to win, like, turn 0, or maybe even turn 1, this is another way to ramp that, you know, can just be 0 mana, you know, Soul Ring, and you can play this and some mocks and just ramp really fast. So like this definitely has some power. The downside is pretty powerful, and it is legendary, so in a modern setting, you know, you couldn't have 2 of these out in the battlefield at the same time. So it is definitely interesting. If you're trying to like lower your life for some reason, this also would work really well in a deck like that, where you could lose 12 life from this card. So yeah, I actually really enjoy this card. Next, we have Krek the Power Hungry. It's a red and a black legendary creature goblin noble 2/2, and it says whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, its controller creates a treasure artifact token. So basically, you're going to swing at someone, and hey, if you manage to hit, you get a treasure, so you can turn creatures into ramping. It's an interesting way for Rakdos to ramp. Then you can sacrifice a treasure to goad target creature an opponent controls. So let's say you're going against an opponent, they have a utility creature, you can make it attack. Say you want to be able to do ramp, you can then sacrifice a treasure to goad a creature, so then now all your creatures can swing through. Like if they have 1 flyer, and you have a flyer, like 2 dragons, you can sacrifice a treasure to goad that creature, so now it's going to have to attack, and then you can swing with your 2 creatures to basically ramp. And then you can sacrifice 6 treasure tokens to become the Monarch, which is then card draw. So this is a very interesting and thematic way for red and black to ramp, force combat, and get card draw from the Monarch. So it is definitely a very interesting card. I think it's balanced fairly well, and I think it would be a very popular commander, as Monarch is just generally a fun mechanic. So I really, really like this card. We have Indoctrinate. It's a 2-cost instant. It says target creature's spell's owner manifest it. So basically, what target non-creature spell's owner manifest it. So basically, say they're casting an artifact, instead of countering it, quote unquote, because white doesn't get many counter spells, you can instead just turn it into a creature on the battlefield, and if it happens to be a creature, which it can't be, you could turn it up to play it. So it's definitely interesting, as it is a counter spell, but it does give your opponent a 2/2 that is the card. So it definitely could be better than a counter spell in some ways, as now it's on the battlefield instead of in a graveyard. So very, very interesting card, and I really enjoy it. It's definitely interesting. We have Ravan, Mischievous Monkey. It's a 2-cost legendary creature monkey with first strike, and whenever he becomes the target of a spell or ability, choose a new legal target for that spell or ability at random. And it's a 2/1. So I think this is a very interesting idea. My only issue with that is that without other pieces, no one is ever really going to target this, which, I mean, could be its appeal. You play this, and then you equip a bunch of auras to it, and now, they're going to try and murder it. Actually, nope, murder that other creature. So it definitely has an appeal for that, and in terms of just, it's hard to kill because single target kill spells are going to be randomly chosen. Now, it can still end up killing him, but if there's a lot of creatures on the battlefield, that's unlikely to happen. I enjoy it. It does lose a little bit of practicality if you're not playing it in that sense. But if you can manage to, force people to target it, if you can somehow be everything targets this, you can kind of, make this fun little randomization targeting game thing. But, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely interesting if you're, equipping it with stuff. Then we have Ifala, the False Hope. It's a 2 black, red, green legendary creature elf warlock with 2/5 with flying and death touch. So I love commanders with death touch. And it says creature spells with power greater than their converted mana cost cost black, red, green less to cast this effect, only reduces the amount of colored mana you pay. So if this is encouraging you to play a lot of spells that are 3/1s for 2, and maybe it's a 1 and a red, and then boom, now you're playing that for 1 mana. So it definitely is very interesting, the cost reduction. And then it says whenever a creature you own with power greater than its converted mana cost dies, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So this is just going to let you just keep replaying those creatures. Now, it itself does not have power greater than its converted mana cost, so it won't get triggered. But if you can manage to get equipment onto this, it doesn't say whenever another creature you own with power greater than it dies. So theoretically, if you can give this thing a boost to make it have more than 5 power, so +4 power, you can make it come back to your hand instead of having to throw it in the command zone in a commander setting. I think this is definitely an interesting card. I would love to play this as a commander. And generally, you'll see that a lot of cards are based on commanders. Now, here we have a Hellseed Crasher. It's a black, red, green, so the same colors. And this would actually work well with the previous card because, hey, it has power greater than its CMC, so then it would be free. And when you cast the spell, return all cards named it from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this obviously is better off in a, not commander deck. It has trample and haste, and it says at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice Hellseed Crasher, which I don't believe these are made by the same people, but they work really well together because, ready, watch this. It has power greater than its toughness, meaning that it's going to be free to cast, and then when it dies, it will be returned to your hand at the next end step. So you're going to be able to just keep recasting this over and over and over and over and over again. So, definitely very, very interesting with the previous card. I like the card itself. You can just keep recasting and recasting and recasting. It is a little restrictive on mana cost, but I enjoy the card. It's just an interesting card. It focuses more on having multiple in the deck, which don't always work that well, where it's oh yeah, go search your library for another card with this name, but I mean, it's definitely interesting. And that's kind of what I've noticed. A lot of these are just interesting. This one is a 4-cost artifact, and you can pay 3, tap it to add Wooburg. So you are ramping in the sense that this thing basically adds 2 mana for 4, and they are allowing you to turn colorless mana into colored mana. Now, in a commander against format, you would only be able to play this in a 5-color deck, but in non-commander, this could definitely be interesting. It just feels a little limited in its use for the fact that, you have to have 3 mana to be able to tap. It's not like it just says tap, add 2 mana. It says pay 3 taps. You do have to have 3 mana open, which oftentimes means casting spells can be a little rough. So, I could definitely see throwing this in a Joda deck where now basically you can pay 3 mana and tap this to cast any spell in the game. So a deck where trying to get all 5 colors is difficult. This would definitely fit well in. We have Gigan of the Iron Herd. It's a 1 Selesnya legendary creature insect beast, and it has companion. It says each non-land permanent card in your starting deck is a creature card with toughness greater than its power, so it's kind of the inverted of the other card we saw. And it says each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power, so we've seen this effect a lot. And then whenever it attacks, attacking creature get +1 toughness until end of turn, which does basically result in +1/+1 until end of turn because of its effect. So that very, very interesting. I love custom companions. I actually do this series called Magic the Marveling, where I take a bunch of Marvel movies and I turn their characters, items, and events into cards, and I'm working on a movie, and Companion is seeing its first introduction in this movie, so it's definitely interesting, and it's very fun to build companions. It's very obvious what you're trying to do here. You're building this with a bunch of walls. I think it might be a little powerful to always have this available, but and the companion cost isn't that high for a deck like this, although running other cards that like do the same effect that maybe don't fit that companion requirement may be like a downside. Like, I don't remember if Arcades has power toughness greater than its power. It might, but definitely interesting. Also, again, similar to the actual Selesnya companion, this one could fit in a creature. Oh, by the way, also I just realized this. Never mind. Each non-land permanent card in your starting deck, so also you can't have any enchantments or auras or artifacts. So that is a bigger downside. This is how Kahira should have been written, but whatever. This is overall pretty good. By the way, what I'm referencing is the fact that if you have no creatures in your deck, the Selesnya companion can be your companion, which is kind of broken in any deck that runs white or green, that doesn't run any creatures, because it's just a card you get to just throw in, and it's a chump blocker. But, yep. Then we have Wellspring Plateau. It's a land, island, mountain, and you can tap it for either blue or red, and it doesn't enter tapped, but it has Vanishing Force, so you basically get 4 counters at it, or 4 counters on it. I mean, if you run this in a deck like Traxa, where you're proliferating a lot, you could then keep proliferating it up. So this definitely has a place, and I think it'd be very powerful in faster formats like competitive EDH or modern or legacy or vintage or something like that, where you know 4 turns, that's as long as the game is going to last. So definitely, again, a very interesting card. That's going to do it for this video. Now, you'll notice that a lot of these cards are very, very interesting, and that's what makes them so upvotable, because that's how Reddit works, is that you upvote the things you like, and so those were the top 10 most upvoted serious cards, and you'll notice that a lot of them are just interesting mechanics that we don't see a lot. Now, some of them were like, oh, the companion, we've seen that text written word for word, but combine it with the companion, we get something kind of unique, and so that really shows the value of a custom card. A custom card isn't good if it just is a card with a different name. It needs to be something that hasn't been seen before. I mean, new land ideas, companions, the new takes on things that just came out in recent sets. All of these are very interesting takes on how to expand the color identity of the colors they're in, and it just overall works really, really well. I mean, some of them are a little funnier, some of them are a little more serious, but overall, I enjoy reading them. I hope you enjoyed. And if you want to see more content like this, more custom magic, please leave a comment or like the video. It means a lot. And if you enjoyed, please hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.